I discovered some important new facts about the unconscious in psychic life, the role of instinctual urges, and so on.
You are dreaming. From behind the curtain arrives a human figure, a man dressed in an old-fashioned way. He sits on an armchair beside your bed. You seem to recognize him. But yes, it is him. It's Sigmund Freud. Turning to you confidently, he says, Stefano, why did you want to be the president of IPA? How do you imagine you would respond to Freud?
Should I respond to Freud in this very unexpected situation? For sure, after the first and early hesitation, I could try to summarize my answer this way. Dear Professor, you are the first responsible for my choice and project because of the huge admiration you raised in myself, in me. And for sure, following your steps has been a fundamental orientation in my choices when I was first a young student, and then a young psychiatrist, and then a candidate, and then a member of my society, and then, when I met the IPA as a community. But it would be very limited to say this because of the complexity of the motivations that I suppose I could share with also my partners in this enterprise, like the previous presidents and the future ones. I think that a mix of curiosity, personal ambition, the role I had in advance in my psychoanalytic society, the conviction regarding some possible aims and goals, and my deep appreciation for the IPA as a community were all important factors in my choice. Under a biographical note, I could add that I grew up in a wide family, and this was perfectly fitting for the huge psychoanalytic family that IPA represents and I experienced.
Great, great.
So I don't know if Freud will be satisfied. Probably he would have liked to go more to depth, but this is not the place for going more to depth about this. All these factors were important.
Thank you. Charles, why did you want to be president of IPA? How do you imagine you would respond to Freud?
I sought the presidency of the IPA in order to make a contribution to Freud's mandate for the IPA to preserve and develop psychoanalysis by means of my new initiatives program. Outreach to increase the number of patients seeking analysis and the number of promising young candidates seeking training. And IPA work groups to carry out inquiries and clinical research that would create opportunities for professional development and for the advancement of clinical and theoretical knowledge.
Yes. Claudio, why did you want to be president of IPA? How do you imagine you would respond to Freud?
Well, first, I would say that it's a pleasure to be talking with you, Professor Freud. And then I would say that this idea of becoming president of the IPA came slowly to my mind, and it was first raised by some colleagues and friends who pointed out to me that I was possibly a natural name to be considered as a future president. Then I was examining my past experiences in the IPA, because before running for the presidency, I was vice president, I was member and chair of the House of Delegates, I was president of FIPAL, and so I had a lot of experience, and I knew a lot of people. So I was thinking about the fact that I could do for the IPA, for psychoanalysis, something in order to help its development. And previous experiences at my university or my own society or at the IPA itself gave me the idea that perhaps I could be helpful. So that these were some of the reasons. Let me also add that I never imagined in the past, even in my wildest dreams, that such a thing one day would happen. But we cannot predict and plan what will happen ahead in our lives.
Great. Otto, why did you want to be president of IPA? How do you imagine you would respond to Freud?
I would respond if I was awake enough. I wanted to become president in order to develop research in the IPA, in order to innovate psychoanalytic education so that teaching for new generation of psychoanalysts would present them with new developments in psychoanalytic theory, in psychoanalytic technique, the relationship to surrounding theories such as neurobiology, social psychology that are related to psychoanalysis as a science. In short, innovation and giving a new spirit of inquiry to the study of psychoanalysis and inspiring a new generation for doing research on it. Second, I was interested in developing the application of psychoanalysis to psychoanalytic psychotherapies for patients for whom psychoanalysis is contraindicated and to whom we can help enormously. Psychoanalytic psychotherapies expand the realm of psychoanalytic science applied to treatment, and Psychoanalytic Institute should teach psychoanalytic psychotherapy as well as standard psychoanalysis. Third, I wanted psychoanalytic institutions to re-establish the connection to the university, to academia, to the other fields of science in order to bring it into line with the development and progress, scientific progress throughout science and humanities universally. These major objectives: expand psychoanalysis, updates and develop theory and technique, develop empirical and other research, teach and develop psychoanalytic psychotherapies, link to the universities. These were main objectives that I tried to foster during my presidency.
100 years after its foundation, what new objective should IPA have to continue its role?
Main areas to be included here. One is to keep the wonderful development that we have in the IPA. For instance, in the training of new analysts, in the opening of new groups throughout the world, in the meetings of analysts, in the publications, and so on. But maybe something that still needs more work is our relation with society. Something that Virginia Ungar, our current president, calls IPA in the community. And several efforts were already developed by our previous presidents. But in any case, I think this is an area in which we should invest our energy and our effort. So I think IPA and psychoanalysis need to have a more efficient and constant role in the issues of the world.
I think that after such a long period, the development and the internationalization of psychoanalysis deserve and need that we all contribute to realize, to monitor, and to encourage the development of psychoanalysis. Not in a very strict conservative sense, but exactly appreciating, valorizing, and promoting a progress that I think, coming back to Freud, on one hand could have, of course, disturbed him, but on the other hand, he would have appreciated very much, because Freud was able to change his mind several times in his life and to recognize good news.
Thank you. Given the technological innovation of the last decades in the field of communication, is the IPA Congress still the place to develop scientific research? If so, could you give me some proof?
It fell to me to have to replace an inadequate London central office computer system with a new service and a greatly improved website. The website included an up-to-date library of IPA-financed research and a community function that allowed members from different component societies anywhere in the world to work together on outreach and research projects. At the Prague Congress, the community function enabled members who planned to join work or other groups at the Congress to exchange papers for study, comment, and criticism by email in preparation for the work at the Congress. In this way, it was possible to extend the work of the Congress, both before and after its meeting, at no additional cost. And members who were unable to attend the Congress itself could contribute to and be enriched by the preparatory and follow-up work of the Congress. You may ask, why not just drop the Congress and let the Internet take its place? My answer to this question is being with people.
The IPA was never a place to develop psychoanalytic research. It was a place to present new ideas, new hypotheses, new findings. But the work on new ideas, on new findings, on research has to be carried out by psychoanalytic institutions throughout the world. In the congresses, they are communicated. So that function of the congresses to communicate research findings, to communicate the interest, the development, to permit the contact development of psychoanalytic institutions that are interested and contribute to scientific research. That is the function of the congresses, and that function will be more important if research and systematic efforts to develop our knowledge and applications become active, to be communicated to the entire psychoanalytic community.
How strong is the tendency to preserve basic institutional principles? For example, what do you think of the current reform process of the Ettingon model?
Oh, you can easily figure out how I particularly cannot be that neutral interlocutor about this matter, because under my presidency, I openly promoted the possibility to discuss and to change the Heitingon variation. The reason for this, as all people know, were that the reality is changing psychoanalysis, and psychoanalysis is changing independently from reality in a reductive sense of the term of reality. There is a process of change which is very hard and probably not opportune to deny. I think that there is also a tendency to preserve traditional fundamental rules or criteria, which sometimes is absolutely legitimate for maintaining the identity and the real nature of the psychoanalytic science and process. But on the other hand, there are undeniably also oppositions who are more linked to a conservative view that is somehow more conservative in the sense of the fear of changing, of the fear of losing the identity, of the fear of achieving new perspectives and new contact with the contemporary culture and also scientific development of psychoanalysis. I would say that the conflict, the institutional conflict, is not only obvious but also necessary for increasing the reflection on the topic. But it cannot stop at all the evolution of the psychoanalysis as a science, as a profession, and as an educational method. It would be absolutely out of history and out of reality to keep an only conservative attitude.
Great.
I think that institutional principles is a very vague concept that very often refers to administrative and bureaucratic ways of keep the organization going. The organization has major objectives to foster psychoanalysis as a science, as a profession, as a contribution to the culture of the 21st century. And I think that the function of the current reform processes in education, in research, in education, do not affect the basic institutional principles at all. So the functioning of the organization in turn has to improve in that we should learn that organizational management is not a static field, but is also a process that requires investigation and developmental research in administrative procedures and management of institutions to foster their major goals is part of what psychoanalysis should be involved in. So I think that the issue is not whether we can preserve basic institutional principles, but to what extent we can develop them further to foster the development and strengthening of psychoanalysis as a science, as a profession, as a contribution to mental health, to knowledge about the human being, and to our culture.
And can you tell us about the memorable episode that happened during your presidency?
Yes, it's very difficult to single out one. I would immediately remember two or three, but one of them was the approval of the three models. The other was the beginning of working of ILAP, Latin American Psychoanalytic Institute. The other was the celebration of Freud's 150th birthday at the United Nations, discussing how to prevent war and how to prevent the transmission of violence through generations. Very moving. But the first one that I would mention was the beginning of analytic training in China. It was officially established in October 2008, and it was a very moving experience for me, both personally and institutionally, because we were struggling among ourselves with this new development. Several colleagues were thinking that maybe it was too early to do this, and I was very convinced that we needed to be there. So I went there with members of the China committee, and we had the first meetings, and we had the seminars, and so we had this formal beginning. And currently we have all this development. Possibly we're going to have the fourth region of the IPA, and I think that the presence of psychoanalysis in the East is a very important step. So it came to my mind all those moments, and from time to time I remember how well I felt, so far from home, but feeling with colleagues and with Chinese colleagues as if I were somehow also at home with them.
Great.
One of many memorable things from my presidency has been the incarnation of my idea of observation work groups in what has come to be known as the three-level model, which continues to grow and develop from inquiry to research. It provides valued opportunities for personal analytic development for its participants in all regions of the IPA. It has shown that groups of well-trained analysts of differing theoretical orientations can observe adequate clinical process notes with sufficient objectivity to agree about what change has or has not occurred in the patient, how and why it has come about, or why not, and what is likely to follow. This reassurance of the intersubjectivity of facts, of clinical observation by psychoanalysis, has amply rewarded me for my labors in office. This is but one of many memories of working on projects with gifted colleagues who generously took up the work because of shared dedication to psychoanalysis. Most memorable are the memories of these dedicated, often ingenious, always hard-working and good-spirited colleagues.
Thank you on behalf of the website editorial boards for your time. I would love to tell you about a dream I had a few days after the Buenos Aires Congress. I was walking on the street of Puerto Madero, Buenos Aires. In the distance, I heard the musical notes of tango. Close to me were crowds of people. On the platform, I saw a couple of dancers. Sigmund Freud was dancing with a wonderful Argentinian lady. Thanks again. September 2011.